Today marks the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. And for most people, Hurricane Katrina seems like a distant memory. But to those who lived and continue to live in the city of New Orleans, it's still a band aid that opens old wounds. When I think about the 20th anniversary or the 20 years that it has been since Hurricane Katrina, it was probably the worst tragedy of the 2000s because it seemed like, you know, when we talk about the year 2000 and the early 2000s, there are three things that made the 2000s worse, like the worst decade to talk about, because most people do not really celebrate that decade or really have open discussions about the early 2000s. But the three things that made the 2000s worse was, of course, 9/11, and then Hurricane Katrina. And between that and the last one would be Michael Jackson's death. And the thing that really makes Hurricane Katrina the worst disaster of that time was the fact that it seemed racialized. Though one might not say it is racialized, but the disaster seemed like the whole nation was turning its back on New Orleans in such a blatant way. Because when tragedies, with hurricane tragedies that happen in places like Florida or coastal towns in Texas or any type of midwestern town, you see what the government response was. And then when you look at Hurricane Katrina, the response was like a snail's pace. And it seemed like culturally, New Orleans was being ignored, mainly because of its melting pot of different cultures and different races. New Orleans had always been known for that. But when George W. Bush came into the play, a lot of people during that time period when the tragedy happened didn't feel George W. Bush's response to the disaster was swift. They didn't feel that he was being sincere. But even when you look back at it, you know, it goes to show you you can't trust government. And government is not your friend. And how many more lessons do we need until people actually get it? When the responses happened, the response was so slow. Even Ray Nagin was pissed off. And I remember when Ray Nagin got on TV a week after and said, "Where the hell were you?" And this was in response to FEMA not coming as swiftly as they should have. You know, and all you saw were pictures of people carrying their things through the water. Some of those people, some of them are more than likely dead or still suffering from the after effects of going through that water because, believe it or not, a lot of that water that they were walking through is raw sewage too. People were living in mold infested homes. They wanted to go back to their homes and fix them up. Some people were getting shot for looting. And then there was the incident on the bridge where the NOPD shot a lot of people that were trying to leave the city to try and cross the bridge, and they were shot. One person got their arm shot off. It was a real tragic mess that kind of crescendoed into a lot of the corruption of the politics in New Orleans and also in its own police department. And even with that, we also see that race and class kind of intersected with each other because of a lot of black folks that live in New Orleans and it's predominantly black city. Well, so many people were being ignored. People were having to be on their roofs asking for help. But we started to see on live TV how race and class collide with each other, and those who are valued and those who are not valued in the United States. And that incident really opened the doors for us to have our nation's first black president. I do believe, whether you believe me or not, that Hurricane Katrina was the catapult that launched Obama's presidency. Because by that time, people got tired of the corruption. People got tired of the political leaders lying to us in our face. And even though George W. Bush is partially responsible for how he responded to the catastrophe, I think the nation at the heart, at the core of its founding, we realized that race and class now carry a certain amount of weight in this country on how people are valued, how their lives are valued, and how other people are prioritized when it comes to their lives. It just opened a can of worms that we couldn't put back in. And New Orleans, after Hurricane Katrina, is now, there's in a house in New Orleans that's under $500,000 now, which is crazy. It's a tragedy that changed everything about the city, but you also had a lot of people lose so much. Um, I do believe, because New Orleans had the sound down there, because of course it's Cash Money Records and No Limit. A lot of people that live down in New Orleans lost mansions, lost cars, everything, and they was like, "Well, we can't go back to New Orleans anymore because all of that stuff is gone." And it also changed the sound of the music that was coming out of New Orleans. Um, a lot of people, that fan hype that New Orleans had went away just completely, and it just seemed like that culturally there was like a cultural identity connected with Hurricane Katrina after it happened. So much of the music that come out of New Orleans, the change of voices. A lot of rappers weren't doing anything after that, '05 to '06. A lot of things had shifted culturally for us. And I think the good thing that has come out of it is understanding coastal towns, reinforce, you know, the reinforcing of the levees in New Orleans, because New Orleans is a very deep crescent. It's shaped differently. Like, unlike a lot of other cities, Louisiana itself is on marshland. It's a wetland. So everything is kind of formed differently. But what really fascinated me about New Orleans is how it's shaped and how it protects itself from flood waters with the levees. It's a fascinating thing because New Orleans is not a landlocked city. It's inland, but it's within a river. A river runs right through it. New Orleans has been known for a lot of things, but one of the things that had to redefine itself after Katrina had to reshape itself as a city because of floods and natural disasters. That's my take on it. Leave your opinions down in the comments section. Tell me what you think about the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. This is Tony J again with Media Talks TV. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, because we got more videos coming up. And I'm up out of here. Peace.